right. In class and through your political advertisements you're going to be working on, you will be covering the terrestrial or land-based biomes of Earth. What we need to talk about in this podcast are the aquatic biomes, so let's get right to it. Your textbook uses the term biome only to speak of terrestrial land-based biomes. They use the term aquatic ecosystems to discuss all areas that have water that contain life. Some people refer to these as biomes as well. Your book didn't. All right, it's important to know how very important aquatic ecosystems are simply because of how much of the earth is covered with water. 3/4 of the earth is covered with water, and because so much of the earth is covered with water, aquatic ecosystems support more life than all of the land biomes put together. There are 3 types of aquatic ecosystems we're going to talk about. They are freshwater. Let me see if I can get my pen right up. Freshwater, estuaries, and marine. So freshwater, estuaries is something in between fresh and saltwater, and marine, of course, are the oceans and the saltwater-based ecosystems. Okay? Now, there is certain characteristics, just like for terrestrial biomes, the characteristic that really determines what kind of biome you're going to get is the climate, the temperature, and the precipitation in the environment. In aquatic ecosystems, it's some other qualities we look at. First of all, we look at how deep the water is and how far away the water is from the shore, because that will characterize what kind of life you're going to see. It determines the depth of water, determines how much light you're getting, and distance from shore determines the amount of nutrient and so on that you're getting. Water flow, whether the water is still or running, and we'll talk more about that later. Of course, the water temperature will determine what kind of life can flourish there, and the chemistry of the water. What chemicals, and again that plays into how far the water is from the shoreline and how much chemical and runoff you're getting from shore. Okay, so salts, nutrients, oxygen also, as we already have learned from our lab that we did, oxygen content in the water is important as well. There are 2 major types of freshwater ecosystems that we will kind of talk about. Those that have fast flowing water, like the rapids here. We've got some rapids that are running right through downtown Richmond, the Pipeline Rapids and some others. And then standing water ecosystems where the water is more still. This is showing folks kayaking in a swamp, but a pond or some other examples of standing water as well. And then there's kind of things in between. So flowing water ecosystems involve rivers, streams, creeks, brooks, things. Many of us here in the Richmond area, Chesterfield County, live nearby little creeks. All these little creeks are feeding into the James River. Now, in flowing water ecosystems where the water is moving with some degree of speed, the organisms there have to be adapted to deal with that moving water, or else they'll just get washed out of where they live. So they have adaptations that allow them to cling to rocks or to plants. The plants that might live there have ways to cling to things as well so that they aren't washed downstream. Fish that swim are going to be really excellent swimmers. They will have extremely streamlined bodies that help them swim upstream against the current and deal with that water that would want to push them in the opposite direction. Standing water ecosystems like lakes or ponds or swamps can provide homes to those kinds of animals that do get washed out of the faster moving flowing water ecosystems. Plankton, the little organisms that are microscopic living things. They can be teeny tiny little animals, most often animal larvae. They can be algae. They can be single-celled critters. So plankton, those little organisms that can float. Phytoplankton are the photosynthetic forms of plankton, the algae, and it is really important to understand phyto. Anytime you see that, it's referring to plant. Now, these aren't necessarily true plants. Algae aren't true plants, but because they're green, they kind of get lumped in there. But it's important to understand that the phytoplankton, because of their photosynthetic nature, they are producers, and they are the base of the food of every aquatic food chain. The phytoplankton is the foundation. They are the foundation. Anything happens to your phytoplankton, the aquatic food chain's in trouble. Zooplankton, you can see the word zoo in there. That's referring to the little planktonic animals or animal-like organisms. So these are the little teeny weeny tiny critters that might eat the phytoplankton. So they might be the first level consumers in your ecosystem, your aquatic ecosystem. So here's a photo of some plankton. You've seen some if you looked in our pond water that we have in class, but there's all kinds of plankton in that. Okay. Importance of freshwater ecosystems. Of course, they are extraordinarily important to us because they do provide us with most importantly, drinking water, but also food for many people. They are homes to many, many, many species of organisms. Unfortunately, people also use rivers, streams, lakes, and so on as dumping grounds for waste. We have water treatment plants that try to prevent that from happening, but sometimes these utilities get overwhelmed in a storm situation or whatever, and untreated water can go into the river or nearby lakes or whatever. So we have to try to be very careful about how we use these resources. All right, freshwater wetlands. It's important that we know what a wetland is. A wetland is an ecosystem in which water covers the soil entirely or is present at least near the soil for at least part of the year. So you can have a wetland in a saltwater ecosystem or a freshwater ecosystem, or a brackish, and we need to know what brackish water is. It's a mixture of both fresh and salt waters. Wetlands are really, really, really important because they're going to be places where there's lots of water and but shallow water that can support lots of plant life, and they are extremely productive ecosystems, extremely productive. They are breeding grounds for all kinds of fish and shellfish and birds, insects, you name it. There are organisms that use these very productive plant-rich ecosystems to raise their young. They have tons of hiding places, tons of food sources, and they are extremely important. It used to be thought that wetlands, people would look at them many years ago and just see a wasteland because you couldn't build a structure on it, you couldn't build a house on it or a shopping center or whatever. Now we know how very important these wetlands are, not just as breeding grounds for organisms, but also as absorbers. They absorb pollutants that run off from the land and cleanse them from the water, so they help to filter our water for us. They help to absorb excess water and prevent flooding when we have lots of rain. They're just incredibly important for our well-being, and we really do we've awakened in more recent years to how much we need to protect them. All right, there are several types of freshwater wetlands. There are bogs, marshes, and swamps. We really don't have much in the way of bogs here. We do have marshes all along the James River, and we also do have swamps, though not nearly as prevalent as the marshes are. Okay. I'm going to stop there, and then we will finish up with the estuary ecosystems and the marine ecosystem. Okay, thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next podcast.